Hi, I'm Lynn Schnebley, and I'm the Ambassador for Heaven's Creating and Protecting Goddesses and Archangels over Life. Hi. Um, I've had a really hard time for the last, since I told them to go ahead and send forward things to the impeachment because I planned on getting the case out so that I could be a whistleblower. Week 2 and week 3 of January, what I learned was really unnerving, and the coronavirus was really unnerving. So this particular section is going to be called Karma Patterns 2020, Vaccines, Nanotechnology, Wi-Fi, Coronavirus, Splintered Cabals, the War on Women, and Karma Noahide. I hope I can get this into the title. I'm going to have a hard time doing this particular section. What I realized is, and I realized this a while ago, is that the masses and the general population is not being invited to the party. So when you see Barack Obama with Bush and they're smooching with each other, or I should say Mrs. Obama or whoever she is smooching with Bush, and you see these other people all coming together and they're all at the same party, or they go to Epstein's, or they go to this, understand that there are various cabals. There was the Zionist Israel cabal. There's the homosexual cabal, which works together in certain things. There's the one for the Vatican. There is the African cabal. And when push comes to shove, as they put that Wi-Fi up, the 5, and there are other places that understand this, I said to myself, if I look at the Bible and if I look at what's happened to my life, through nanotechnology, they have to be able to get the transmission or whatever they're doing to you into you some way. Because as soon as the Wi-Fi goes up, they're just marking their time. It's like there's a circus going on and everybody's throwing everything up in the air, and the masses and everybody else is just watching. Whether you're the kids or the teachers or whether you're a plumber. The whole thing about Apollo and the age of Leo and Regulus is that entertainment is what keeps the masses going. Just keep it games, just keep it entertainment, and do your dirt underneath the whole thing. So whether the dirt is happening in church or whether the dirt is happening in politics, throw everything up in the air and keep them running so that they don't know what they're doing. And part of what we do in terms of Seligman and psychology is that if they keep you going back and forth in all directions, then you don't know what to believe. And you go down to the lowest level. You become learned helpless. Right this minute in schools and elsewhere, especially in Florida, the kids are utterly addicted to their cell phones. In fact, I don't even know if they exist anymore. It's sad. So it'll be very easy for them. So I figured, how are they going to get it in? And this is what they're doing. And I think this is something to do with the coronavirus, which is why that professor was picked up. Harvard chemistry chiefs arrest over China links. Normally, I like to get the prophecy out there beforehand, before it hits, so that you get it. But there's just so much going on here that I couldn't. In November, and it's going to go into my case in early November. I can pull it up because it's better. I'll put that up later when I put the case in. In November, early November, I went in and I had a vaccine for the flu. Now, I hate getting vaccines for the flu. I normally get sick afterwards, and I haven't had a vaccine for the flu in like 10 years because I've only had 2 my entire life, and I got sicker after that. So I thought, why am I going to bother with this one? But Better kept calling me, and my doctor, somebody else recommended it. So finally, I think it was November the 4th, I went in and I got it done. Just Walgreens, and had the flu shot done. The next day when I woke up, I was sore around my breast. Now, I carry this backpack around with my computer and all kinds of things in it, so I thought, well, maybe I hurt myself there. I've never had this before. A week later went by, and it's got more pain, and it's like going toward the nipple, and it's under my arm, and it's in my arm, and I'm waking up with it. It's uncomfortable. And I feel it. And I say to myself, whoa, those are lymph nodes, and they're inflamed. So I'm thinking to myself, could it be the vaccine? I mean, I've had vaccines before. I've never had a problem with my lymph nodes before. So I went and I spoke with my mother. I went out in the morning, and she's 82 and 81, and I forgot. And I said, look, this is what happened to me. And she said, I have a mammogram tomorrow, Lynn. She said, because last month I had a flu shot done. And immediately after, it hurt going through my breast and in that same area. I said, what? She said, yeah, I have a mammogram. And when she said that to me, I thought, you know, they have to pick older people off and sicker people off in some way. This can be done through nanotechnology, and they can reassemble with Wi-Fi. So my mother went and had her mammogram done. And on the 12th of December, I had my physical. And as I went in for my physical, my mother, by the way, got her mammogram results back, and they didn't see anything, but both of us are sore in this area. And her doctor said, oh, it could be a reaction to the, if it was a bulk shot, meaning that they can give it to a few different people. They have enough of it that they can give it to, the preservatives can cause this inflammation. So, you know, I went through and I looked it up. There's nothing there that talks about the lymphatic here. It talks about the lymphatic in the legs. But this really felt like kind of minuscule little particles kind of thing. And at the same time that this is coming out, a few weeks after I'm now reporting it to my mother, they come out the end of December, I guess, about that new little creature, the new little nano thing that has the organic stem cells on it that can hop around inside your body, that's got the stem cells of a frog, and now they have it in a little microchip and they can put it inside of you. So I'm still feeling some of this here. So I go to my doctor. And the first thing I do is I speak to the nurse that's coming through there. And I said, you know, this is this nanotechnology. I have a feeling we're being experimented on. And she said, well, you know, all kinds of things are happening. And I said, well, and so then I speak to my doctor, and she doesn't actually come out and say it. Remember, if you're on the top, like 5% of everybody they want in the world, you're on the to keep list. But the average person, and you know, a whistleblower, is definitely not on the to keep list. So the rest of us are not to keep. Okay, they'll go through and they'll pick us off, and then, you know, they get what they want afterwards. And you think it's that strange? No, it isn't. So to make a long story short, I speak to her about it, and she said, well, you know, we know you're never going to have another one again. She said, but it could be preservatives. And I said, my mother's had these things for years. People have had these for years. I said, it really feels like particle irritant. And I had gotten my mammogram done after that, and nothing showed up, but it's still there. So my case hasn't gotten forward. They have not been able to hold the masses in place yet, and I've been hit by what I believe to be a cabal of the homosexual groups. One of the aspects of my case is that I realize there needs to be, across the board, there needs to be a reduction in population, but it needs to be naturally done. And it needs to be done to support strong genetics. Remember, we're over life. So we want strong genes, and I don't care what your race is, but and that doesn't mean that you can't marry, because remember, Adam is not about the mother-child relationship. It's not the man-man or the woman-woman. It's about the man-woman combination. So even if you shouldn't be having children, you can still get married. And that's the Adam unit. Okay. Now, when I talk about moving forward and having genes and having them go forward, if you have not, for the people that are upper class like Elon Musk, who gender assigned all 5 of his boys in terms of in vitro fertilization for his former wife, they're all 5 boys, all in vitro or gender is assigned, that would not, they would not be able to go forward. They would have, I'm not discriminating here. If you have not been able to have a child naturally, then you don't have the genetic material to go forward naturally. And I'm not looking at race. So there's a lot of other components that we're looking at. Broward School, I don't know. Anyway, so there are things that we're looking at in this, and again, we're looking at natural attrition simply by pulling some of the stoppers off because you have no, you don't have the resources. All right. Because they're going to do it to you and they're going to take the healthy, and that's not acceptable. So I told them, you have to give people a chance to make their repentance. The Chinese have a healthier population as a whole and a higher IQ. And I said the Chinese and the Russians should be able to look after this and help us out with this. Aside from the fact that Australia should be going to China and the Australians should be coming into Canada. The other thing, please stop, phone. And the other thing I said is all of our athletes need to be tested, the women. And at this point, because there are so many transsexual women that are in sports and getting our positions as real women, this needs to be tested for. We need to have a genetic basis so that we can come clean. And some of you are going to say, oh, this is really terrible. And I'm telling you, my first degree is in psychology. We learned a firm DNA and brain differences that happened. The brain differences happened in utero, and this is 40 years ago when I went to Wells. Men have on average 4% less DNA than women do. By the time you remove that part which they borrow from the X chromosome and then they turn it off, they turn off that part of the X chromosome, on average 4%. They have more of a reptilian brain. They have less to the front. They have less less gray matter to the front. I mean, there's a marked difference in the brain. And this happens, it begins in utero. So by the time you're 12, 13, 14, and I'm not blaming African Americans on this because the first person to do that was the Renee, oh, I can't think of her name, during the 1970s, the Jewish ophthalmologist whose father was an orthopedic surgeon, whose mother was a psychiatrist, definitely knew about these differences. 6'1", had been offered professional scholarships to play baseball. I mean, this is incredible. And then he goes in and sues because they have friends on the New York State, I guess, Supreme Court to override genetic testing. And when we say that we have friends on the court, that means we can blackmail you. So let's go on and take a look. So what concerns me is that coronavirus that came out. And when I came out with what's going to happen to your tree of life in 2020, they went out and picked up the professor from Harvard, whose name is Charles Lieber. So what you're going to find is that a lot of these people with coronavirus and Charles Lieber, they're all single men. They're all unattached. A lot of these terrorist men are all unattached men. Let's go in and see what Mr. Lieber does, Professor Lieber does. Again, Broward's calling me. Here we go. Let's turn this off. Let's go on here. He engages in that kind of, please be quiet, I better turn this off. He engages in the type of nanotechnology that can go right into your brain. And this is what Elon Musk is talking about, which is what you can do with the 5Y. If it goes into your brain, they can turn you off. All probability, this is what happened to Stephen Hawkins, because he looked pretty dead to me for years. And no, they weren't getting things from his musculature. The man that they wheeled around towards the end wasn't breathing. So go through and take a look at what he's doing, because he is the one whom they picked up, I think it was on the 31st, and he was connected to Wuhan. All right. Please read up on him and his group. He was connected to Wuhan. Now this brings me to the doctor in Wuhan who outed this thing, who supposedly is dead. Why would an ophthalmologist in a hospital be involved in this? It's just a question. I mean, why would he be a whistleblower in this area? And he sits there with his mask on like this. I mean, we're looking at people that are into chaos theory. How would he even know? I mean, he's an ophthalmologist. An ophthalmologist in a hospital would not be handling these things. Okay? Just letting you know. They wouldn't be. Alrighty, let's go back and take some more looks. Let's take a look at all the other kinds of crazy things that are going on here. So here we go. All right, and he was the one who was picked up. Syringe injectable mesh electronics can integrate seamlessly with the brain. Here we go. They work in, he works in nanotechnology that can be reassembled and can go into the brain. Alzheimer's, all those kinds of things. Okay, SpaceX is launching 60 more Starlink. He has his Starlink. He has his nanotechnology group. He has his brain group. He had the Red Dragon going to Mars, which is the most wicked character in Revelations. The Merlin. And he believes life is one great big video game, and he gender specified his children. Okay. Let's move on. And there, Fiona Hill. Let's take a look at Born Intelligence and Testified. I've already said Fiona Hill was a man, but clearly I'm not the only one who says this. When did Fiona Hill been her transgender surgery? So I'm not the only one who is seeing this. Not the only one. Let's see if we can find this. I think we can. When? See that? I'm not the only one who's seeing these things. Let's take a look at Serena Williams. You're going to see a picture of Serena Williams without her boobs on. And of course, years ago, before she had all this padding and stuff put on. But take a look at the shoulders on Coco. Yeah. Delray Beach in South Florida seems to be a hub for this. Please take a look at this and watch these shoulders moving back and forth. And there are some white tennis players that are doing the same thing. Serena's wearing her boobs today. He was wearing his boobs today, and he was wearing some boobs today, but boy, those are some shoulders. And when they let the two white girls win, oh yeah, hey guys, look at this. Everybody take a peek. Look at that. Looks like a linebacker from the back. Well, not quite that big, but you know what I'm saying. Some of these girls are kind of big, but I mean, let's go back and take a look, right? Folks. Now, as they do this, oh, that's Coco. While Coco what is climbing up the top. All right, so that means they're pushing all these regular girls out. And do you know what happens when people say something about it? And I've already told you the genetics and the biology are there. So this is a gross delusion of grandiose. And white men and other men have backed them and have allowed this to happen. And it was done to put women in their place. It was done deliberately. And it's happened in religion. It's happened through the clergy. And they allowed the men themselves allowed it to happen. So, and then of course they can be blackmailed. So women have no rights. We have no idea. So the astronauts, we have no idea if women astronauts are going up. We can't say anything. The girls that are supposed to be getting the scholarships for coding, we have no idea if it's girls getting the scholarships for coding. Any of those positions, the embassy positions, any of these things that say that women are going into it, we have no idea that women are going into it. None. We have nothing. And in terms of abortion, Hugh Hefner undermined the whole thing and had to go out, and they had to convince the women's rights movement, who was not pushing any of that. And then they undermined the entire thing when Martin Luther King Jr. had his interview right after he got his Nobel Peace Prize, and it was Alex Huxley, and was that it? I can't remember. And he was a gay black man writing for Playboy, and everybody at that point, it destroyed the women's rights movement, and it elevated pornography, which is prostitution film and prostitution movies. And it was all done by white men. And it was Hugh Hefner, who had a friend on the Supreme Court for the Roe versus Wade. And it's a lot of men and institutions and science institutions that want the late-term fetal tissue and want the live babies that are coming out of New York. They want the organs and they want the babies. But women are taking the rap, and nobody is informing young women of what really happened. And nobody is informing young women of the true difference between men and women. We have been sold this thing instead of being able to stand up for our rights. Let's go back. I think that's a woman that's not quite as broad in the back. I do see. I think the shoulders aren't as broad. Of course, they had to let her win. I mean, there's no way this woman could actually, I told them, I said, I'm going to ask the Russians and the Chinese to have events for just women. And boy, did they not do it. Okay, we're going to go back to this in a moment. Here we go. Now that person is listed as a woman and has taken the job that a woman could have been able to do but doesn't have the right to do because a transgender man has preference over a woman. And it keeps women in their place. I don't think there's anything else there. Now we're going to go in and talk about something that's really uncomfortable. I have to be quiet about this for a moment. Do you want to pause? Um, so um, oh, is this what I want? No. Let's go back here. Are you still running? I guess you're still running. Here we go. I'm sorry, I'm quiet. I thought I'd turn this off. Let's turn this on. I guess you're still running. So this is what I found on the 21st. And you will see that this part, and I was watching something called The Prophet, The Prophecy. Now look at that, because it's in the Lost Book of Nostradamus, and it's under the signs that I have for the triangle, my 2 Master 11s, my 2 and my 12-12. And then there's a picture in the Lost Book of Nostradamus, and it's Gabriel. By the way, I have the lily and several things. I played the trumpet and French horn. This is interesting. Parents is horum for the horium. It also means to have sex and penis. All right, so let's get out of here for a moment. Okay, so I'm going to try to make this fast. Let's see if I can move this up. The 7 principles. Oh, there's several principles. There were the 7 Noahides. There is the 7 that's found throughout parts of Ethiopia. There are several 7s. But remember, in World War II, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 were 7 of them were Sagittarians. Franco up here, they were all Sagittarians. That's statistically impossible. And when I warned about the 4 event, I told you about the September, and that was a 4-year. The earthquakes in Christchurch, actually they got punished, but it was also a system. Lost Book of Nostradamus. It's happening under the grave. It is the black star of the occult. It is the British, and the British get a chance to come out with everything. Now I'm going to try to go through so we can find this, and if I can't find it really fast, let me see. This is all research for the Horian. Okay. Micah tells you it's coming right out of the clouds. They're the black stars, 5 eyes coming right after you, and he tells you that they're taking your life. Here's the Noahide. You cannot kill an animal, you cannot rip an animal apart and leave it alone, and you also have to be involved in the Noahide. So I looked up, because this thing that's in the Lost Book of Nostradamus keeps looking like a pulled apart, crazy looking lobster over the tree of life. And so I looked up the lobsters, and sure enough, there's a problem that's been going on in Maine since my case began in 2013. There's been serious complaints. But then I also viewed a thing online with a chef at a table who had, at the table, as he's preparing the food, had ripped the lobster tail off and put the thorax and the claws on top of it. and the thorax, and the lobster is reaching up off of his thorax with its claws out like that as he's frying the tail in the back. And they let you know, the Lost Book of Nostradamus lets you know that in July, late July of 2018, the laws of your karma change. So what I said, and I need the Hindus. We have to have a discussion with the Hindus. Let's go and take a look. So it isn't just the crabs that we pull apart in here and we toss them back in. It isn't, it's our experiments on animals, but it's what you did to women. It's what you do to the earth. You are lower than the lowest. And you don't, aside from pulling babies apart, which of course Hugh Hefner can go through all these abortions, and cognizantly you can know what you're doing. It can't go on forever though. This is why repentance is so important and why you need to give them a break. You must repent, and you must repent publicly. You must. And I don't know what the church is going to do because I can't help them. And I can't help the psychologist and the psychiatrist and those people who knew what they were doing and they knew that they were lying. I can't help you. Let's go back in. I'll put you on pause and we'll find it. By the way, this is Sela, which is the goddess over grain that the Amaru had. And that has to do with anointing oil. She had a mace with 2 areas, and she gets, and I'm going to get it from the Jews, Sela, that's Meghan Markle. This was earlier, that was later, and that was the latest. So we went from bigger to smaller. This is insane. There he is without his boobies. Sick. This is completely composite. People that are anti-Muslim do not go. I told you they don't go to Pakistan. I'm trying to find this actually. There is an awful lot here. When I was homeless and I had to change in the ladies' room, it was early in the morning in a park. And I looked in the park and I looked at the mirror and I thought, as I'm going through menopause, I thought, you know, I'm losing my hair down there. And they then sent me an email on the 20th of 2017. I had no cell phone around me. This is what my life is like, and this is what they can do. And Micah and Nostradamus are absolutely correct. So your powers of being have got to be able to talk to you. This is definitely the penis. All right, but this is, all right. So when we get into Cancer, it's no longer going to be the crab. It is going to be the lobster that you're going to remember to keep you on track. And the broken lobster. Let's see if we can find. I'm trying to, oh, that's the calamite. That's me, by the way. I will be the head of the church. That was right after the bombing. Right after the Manchester that he was behind. So Prince Harry had to get married. You're looking for one male at the end of Revelations, Nostradamus is telling you, and so would Micah. It isn't going to help you. All right, of course, December 12th, we're shooting out Pisces. This is, and we're tearing up the scrolls. This is the lion, and this is the androgynous human being. It's not male, it's the XXXY personality. And this is the greater book, and I'm working underneath it. So men are only they're only a part of that. All right, this is when my case began, Jupiter and Leo. Clearly, the blind god, they say the nations come after me. I am tearing up the scrolls. We get through Jupiter and Leo. This is when you had to be done. And I told them they had to be done. And when I caught that, this is Jupiter and Scorpio. That's the Meghan Markle. She is the spotted U. This is when her birth date would have been. And at that point, we needed to be done with the scrolls. And all of a sudden, you see this partial lobster that's over now, your kind of sickly looking tree of life. You're looking for a little boy. It's a younger woman, it's an older woman. And yes, this is the Noahide. This is the 7. This is the Shabbat. And by the way, this is what happened to me. And you don't see it much of the time, but they do. August the 25th, 5 days later, you got hit with 4 rounds of hurricanes. That was on purpose. You will see more. Here we go. When this happened, because I reported what was happening, that happened to you again. When this happened here, because of what happened with the Adam and Eve story, you got Michael. It doesn't stop. So you're going to see all of that. You will see all of this. And unfortunately, our white men have done such a problem on women that in the future, we probably will not have a white race. There will be almost nothing left of us. And our men did it to us through false paradigms in their games. See if there's anything else there. Oh, here we go. The Carians. That XX is right there. And it goes to the angel Gabriel. Yeah, there it is. Oh, when I said Africa did not want all these homosexual things, well, sure enough, this is what happened. I mean, this is incredible. They went right after him. The Anglican Church, the Scottish Church. This is incredible. Hadam brings agriculture, and the Catholic Church sees women as, I'm not even going to go into this anymore. Okay. I have another whole thing of Nostradamus that's online on my station, and you can go in and see it at any time.